Sometimes the most personal moments don't come from a red carpet or a talk show couch. They come from a single Instagram story posted almost in passing, that ends up saying more than 100 headlines ever could. That's what happened when Lola Consuelos, daughter of Ripa and Mark Consuelos, shared something honest about herself with her followers. Not a scandal. Not a controversy. Just a quiet, very human confession about something she's been living with. Lola posted a screenshot of a text conversation to her Instagram story. In it, she'd written to someone, "Ugh, I'm so nauseous. I don't think I'll be able to, I'm so scared." Alongside the screenshot, she added a caption that felt almost like she was reaching out to find her people. "Where are my baddies with emetophobia?" For anyone unfamiliar with the term, emetophobia is an intense, often overwhelming fear of vomiting, either the act itself or even just the thought or sight of someone else being sick. It's more than squeamishness. For people who live with it, it can shape daily decisions. What they eat, whether they travel, how they handle being around illness, even how they manage ordinary anxiety about their own body. And that's really what made this moment land the way it did. Lola wasn't making an announcement. She wasn't doing a big reveal. She was just being honest in the same offhand way any of us might vent to a friend, except her friend list happens to include hundreds of thousands of strangers who grew up watching her family on morning television. There's something worth sitting with there. Lola Consuelos has spent her entire life in the periphery of a very public household. Her parents have spent decades building a brand around openness, sharing family stories, inside jokes, and home movies with a national audience every weekday morning on Live with Kelly&Mark. Growing up in that environment means growing up watching your own life narrated, in some form, before you're old enough to have a say in it. So when Lola chooses, on her own platform, in her own words, to talk about something as private as a phobia, it carries a different kind of weight. This wasn't handed to a magazine. It wasn't teased on her mother's show. It was Lola speaking directly to whoever wanted to listen on her own terms. That timing matters too. Her disclosure came right around the release of new music, specifically a single called Hypochondriac, the follow-up to her debut track, Lola. Hypochondria, as a condition, is related but distinct from emetophobia. It's a persistent, often exhausting worry about one's health even without a clear medical reason for concern. Between the song title and the Instagram post, Lola appears to be pulling from a very real, very personal well for her music, using anxiety not as a topic to hide from, but as raw material for her art. That's not a small thing. There's a long tradition of artists turning their private struggles into something people can connect with, and it takes a certain kind of courage to do that under a spotlight you didn't necessarily choose for yourself. Lola isn't just Ripa and Mark Consuelos' daughter putting out a song. She's an artist trying to carve out her own identity, using her own experiences, even the uncomfortable ones, as the foundation. It's also worth remembering where Lola is in her life right now. She studied at NYU, spent time abroad in England during her studies, and eventually made the full move from New York to London, where she's been based for a couple of years now. Kelly has talked about this on her podcast, Let's Talk Off Camera, with real warmth, encouraging the idea of young people spending time abroad, saying London has such a charm to it. There's an unmistakable pride in the way she talks about her daughter building an independent life across an ocean. So this isn't a young woman still living under her parents' roof, dependent on their platform. This is someone genuinely stepping into her own adult life, her own city, her own career path, her own way of communicating with an audience. And when she talks about something like emetophobia, she's doing it as herself, not as an extension of Kelly&Mark's kid. That distinction is part of what makes moments like this resonate with viewers. Longtime fans of the show have essentially watched Lola grow up on screen, from stories Kelly told about snake-filled lakes at summer camp, to family photos revisited on talk shows, to Lola's own good-natured jabs at her parents' more embarrassing social media habits. There's a familiarity there that a lot of viewers feel, almost like they've watched a niece or a younger family friend grow into adulthood. So when someone the audience has watched grow up says plainly, "Here's something I struggle with," it doesn't read as gossip. It reads as an update on someone people have quietly rooted for over the years. It humanizes her in a way that headlines about her famous parents never fully could. It's also a reminder of something bigger than one family. Anxiety-related conditions like emetophobia are far more common than people often realize, and they're rarely talked about openly, partly because there's still a strange sense of embarrassment attached to fears that don't always make logical sense to people who don't experience them. When someone with a public platform names a condition like this out loud, without shame, it tends to give permission to a lot of quieter people watching from home to feel a little less alone in whatever they're carrying. That, more than anything, might be the real story here. Not a scandal, not a crisis, just a young woman being candid about something real, at a moment when she's using her own art to make sense of her own anxieties. And for a family that's built its public identity on warmth and honesty, that kind of openness feels very much in character. Kelly, Ripa and Mark Consuelos have spent years letting audiences into their world. The arguments, the inside jokes, the parenting stories that don't always flatter them. Lola choosing to speak candidly, on her own account, about something so personal fits naturally into that family tradition of openness, even as she builds a life and a career entirely her own. Whatever comes next for Lola, the new music, the next chapter of her career, whatever else she chooses to share. This moment says something simple and worth appreciating. Sometimes the most meaningful thing a person can do with a platform isn't to perform. It's to just be honest. What did you think of Lola's decision to speak so openly about something so personal? Let us know in the comments. And if you've followed Lola or Kelly and Mark's family story over the years, share what moments have stuck with you the most.